Hi, and welcome to Dynamics Update. And this episode is a bit special. First of all, it doesn't come on the regular schedule for reasons. And second of all, it actually was triggered partly because me and Gustav was out traveling this week. We were actually at the conference. So welcome, Gustav.
Thank you, Johan. Welcome back.
Thank you. It was nice being there, but it was also nice to get home.
Yeah, as always.
As always. So we were actually at the DynamicsMinds conference in Portorož in Slovenia, which was 3 days of F&O, CE, Business Central, and Power Platform. But the thing was, they also had a couple of workshops which were added to the schedule, so you could actually spend a couple of hours actually working through something and trying hands-on and so on. And then they also had a fifth track, what that they called, which had to do more with like software values around community.
Solution architecting, exactly, like how...
Yeah, and also regarding inclusion and things, which I actually think was really nice, because I mean it's always nice to be able to listen to people talking about technical stuff. I mean, I'm a geek for that, but you can, on the other hand, figure out most of what you hear in a conference around the technical parts. You can figure out on your own exactly, using the internet. But hearing people talk about community and inclusion and the software parts and what makes you a good solution architect, for instance, that's not something that you can actually read yourself to understand. You need to actually listen to someone and hearing their experiences and so on. And that was really, really important part.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not the least being a conference gathering people from all around the world, not only Europe. So you get a lot of different perspectives on those topics, regardless of where you're from. So it was very interesting conversations.
Yeah. And then there was an expo area, which was really nice because you could actually meet there was quite a bunch of sponsors and companies who were there talking about their company and their products and so on. Yeah. Which is I mean, if you're into looking for something special, then it's a good place to be, because you can actually have a low stress discussion over lunch or dinner with someone about their product, and not in a traditional sales context, which I also think is an important.
Yeah, absolutely. It removes the distance. I mean, we have Doccentric, the company that hosted this together with many people, but mainly Doccentric. They were there, of course, and we work with Doccentric in different projects. So it was a good opportunity to discuss like future improvements, how to work with a specific issue, etc. Without, I mean, it's not a hard thing to write an email either, but it's always more nice to speak to the person in real life. And discuss different scenarios. So that in itself is a key, very valuable outcome of any conference, but specifically this.
Yeah, and it's a bit less informal.
Yeah, exactly right.
More informal. It's not like a scheduled team meeting. You can actually just sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and discuss things from your perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
And then both you and me also spent some time in the experts corner, mm-hmm. which was a really nice thing. I actually think that is one of the parts that's
the most fun, right? Yeah,
yeah, the most back, because you go there, you stand there for an hour, people come asking questions, and you don't really know exactly what they're going to ask about. So it's a bit ad hoc, and I think the fun thing is that you need to be able to think on your feet and so on. So I think that was really fun.
Yeah, I agree. That's like a live community forum, right? Because you're able to ask a question and then like to work through the actual question to understand what it is, and it's really fun. But hopefully in the end, like land in a real conclusion as well, to provide some value for both sides. Those are very fun.
Yeah, and there were in the expert corner, there were both Power Platform, CE, F&O, and BC people. So it was very interesting because in some cases you could actually drag someone in from one of the other stalls.
Is this
and
true?
say, so this is probably not just an F&O issue. This is probably a C issue. Could you please come and help me and see if we can understand this and so on. That was really, really fun.
Yeah, I know. I wrote about that as well. Like one of my key takeaways. There were many key takeaways from like technical perspective, understanding a specific subset and stuff like that. But one of my main takeaways from this conference, I tried to visit different, like not only going the F&O track, because as you said before, you can always read up on those things, and I hopefully I tried to stay on top of the F&O specific areas. So it made more sense to try to listen in on different other aspects of the platform, both BC and Power Platform, and specifically CE, because it's more close to F&O. And I think that gave me the most understanding. And like I was looking at different, like exports to data lake was one very good talk, where like the same issues we get from F&O, like understanding how it works, the differences in sync, etc. It's kind of the same challenges. It's just that the data is a bit different. But it really drives home the point that we are, as long as we understand the strengths of the different systems and try to work with it, rather than trying to like rebuild some specific set of functionality that already exists in Power Platform within F&O, because that's your weapon of choice. You don't need to be an expert in all fields, but trying to at least understand the strengths of the different systems, different platforms and components is really, really important. And it's very helpful then to be in a place like this conference where, as you say, you can just reach out, hey, is this, can you explain this component to me? Or how does it actually work? Or does it actually work? Stuff like that.
So did you see any good specific sessions?
Well, many. So I tried to list before this recording here. And I don't think there was any like NDA things attached here, at least nothing that was told. So I hope that's okay. But I just, without any prioritization here within, I went to electronic invoicing, a favorite topic of mine. That was, of course, an F&O, but it's an add-in. And it's that was a very good session. It was specifically for different countries. So it was like France and Saudi Arabia, the sessions that were scenarios that I know are described as well on docs and in the feature. But it's interesting to hear about the different challenges that people from around Europe and America as well encounter, being legal regulatory demands, right? Because I think in Sweden we think we are quite modern with e-invoicing, and maybe we are, but we are, like, from a percentage of using e-invoice, we are not in top. And other countries are driving that. With France specifically, if I understood it correctly, they're like enforcing all companies must provide a copy of every transaction to one specific portal, right? And for me, it's like, what? We need to send everything to them? But that's the case, and that's being driven as well on the EU side. And this is not news, but it's interesting to see how we always have to adapt, because then you have a real hard deadline, right? Because the law is being enforced at a specific date. So it's very interesting to hear both the presentation itself and the discussions afterwards on how Microsoft adapts to it and how we try to implement it. And the problem might not be that the functionality isn't there in F&O, because it is. I mean, Microsoft has to adapt to the regulatory demands. The problem might be such things as was raised in the presentation as well. You don't have a way to test it unless you have, like, there was one example from France where you have to have a company actually registered in France in order to get a test like platform available. But if you're rolling out and you don't already have a company, you might not have a way to test it. So these kinds of things become interesting as well, like real life stories of how implementations are going. It's not always about the code not being there. It might be something else stopping you. So that was one. And there was a number of different doc-centric or enhancements to the like mailing functionalities and print archiving functionalities that we use specifically. I think were very great, and it's again also interesting because you can then have a discussion of like what's coming in the roadmap, what's going to be there, so you can adapt to that as well. I have many more, but you can also fill in with maybe some of yours.
Yeah. So I actually watched one of the guys who's been on our podcast, Aurélien Claire.
Yeah.
Who talked about finance and operations in conjunction with Power Platform. He discussed about the best practices around rolling out a new environment and setting it up. And especially if you're going to host CE on it, then there are some particulars that you need to take into account and understand and so on. So it was basically a really good session with really a checklist of how to get it done and how to do it. Then I actually went to one of the legends of F&O, Martin Drab's session about how to use source control in a more efficient way.
Me too.
Where one of the limitations is like using source control towards different branches at the same time, or even if you're a consultant, using it towards different customers, which is known to be an issue. And what he talked about there was the ability to use like workspaces within Visual Studio to actually have different context on how you were building things and so on. But it since it's not the out-of-the-box supported version, it requires some trickery to get it to work completely. But on the other hand, he showed it in a very, very smart way as well. So I
also shared it afterwards and on Git. The PowerShell scripts, right?
Exactly. And then I went to a session about community engagement and that discussed actually about being like a public speaker on a conference and maybe even trying to get like nominated for an MVP, and whether or not it was worth it, and what the thoughts about the MVP title actually was, and how it benefits you, but also it does come with a lot of requirements that might not be the one you are able to take on right now. So that was a really interesting one, and especially the discussion about being like a new public speaker that hasn't been at the conference, speaking at the conference before, and how you can actually get in and get started with public speaking at the conference. So that I thought was really interesting.
A little bit of a fifth track thing as well. That's great.
Yeah, and I think that's important, and also having like 4 really experienced MVPs being on stage, and all of them raising their hand when it came to imposter syndrome, and understanding that it's not just you who are nervous while speaking at the conference. I mean, even the guys who have done it 1,000 times still get nervous, and that's not a problem. It might even be a good thing.
I think it's a good thing,
because then you actually are on your toes.
Absolutely. I think that's a different topic that we can spend a lot of time on to discuss as well. But a little bit of nervousness, I think, implies that you care, and that's a very good thing. At least how I think about it, because God knows you're always a little bit nervous before doing a presentation, and I think that's good. So and on that topic, I went. I think you said it before as well. It's very clear that this was a community-driven. Of course, a lot of expo, a lot of different companies, but it was very clear there was a community conference, because the entire community. And I went to one session with, speaking of legends, both Andre and Martin, discussing how they, because I think they are top answering on community questions on the forums. I saw some statistics as well as really, really impressive, but these two guys, along with, of course, many others as well, but specifically those, because they were presenting what they have done and are still doing, a lot of investment in time and helping out. And the presentation was about things like how to formulate your question in a good way to ensure that others can help out as much as possible, and how to behave in a community sense. Really interesting topic, and it's really cool to see that this is still thriving a lot, the community, right? Even though with documentation being much better than it was before, it's still like this engagement back and forth, trying to understand, reason about different things. It's really cool discussion, and it's super helpful to have both Andre and Martin, of course, but anyone else who helps out on the forums, because it really drives it forward and really drives the community. So I think that was that was one of my best presentations from like it felt really good being part of that same community. And and some more technical ones, I think the business performance analytics, I think Fabric was officially revealed this day the conference ended, if I'm not mistaken, right? And Fabric is a topic we'll go back to, of course, related to F&O, the one lake, and what does that mean from export options available to us? Is the data lake going away, etc.? So we'll get back to that topic. But for now, it seems very clear that a lot of the BPA, the business performance analytics, is like something that you can enable within F&O and gives you an export to a data lake, and it gives you pre-configured BI reports, like for now mainly finance oriented, but it's really like a flick of a switch rather than having to configure everything with key vaults. And even though it's not that super complicated, this really is just like enable it and it's there. But it's there on a managed lake. That's a big difference. It's not there on your own lake. So that's something we'll need to go back to and look at, of course. But that was really cool. And I think looking at experience, a lot of implementations and users out there spend too much time on the infrastructure side there when it comes to getting your data into a workable fashion somewhere. Power BI is in this case, of course, but and to which gives you not enough time to actually work on what you need to report. What should be your KPIs? How should we build this report? How should we build this dashboard? Because you have a specific set of users that are very good in that part, and then you have other set of users that are good in another part. And nowadays, I think that's a little bit of a problem because there might be some expectations that a Dynamics F&O consultant should be an expert in all of these areas, and I think that's a hard sell. But enabling us to kind of remove that component from the project and allowing us to directly give access to, let's say, business controllers is a really, really good win. It's not there, it's not available yet, but it's coming, and I think it looks very nice.
Yep. So I basically have two more things I would like to touch on before we leave today's episode. First of all, we were not there as just visitors to the conference. We were there as speakers as well. So you did one session together with me, and then I had two more sessions. So we talked about Dataverse, we talked about F&O, and we talked about microservices and template rollouts. And in the template rollouts, I actually bumped heads with one of the other MVPs because we didn't have exactly the same opinion about things. But I mean, that's sort of a part of the thing, that being able to speak at the conference is actually a good way to get your
opinion tested.
Yeah, exactly. Someone will challenge you.
Yeah.
Someone will ask you questions, and someone will not agree with you, which means that you will have to rethink things, and you will have to figure out, okay, so is this person right or wrong? Why don't I agree with the person? And that was the same thing with the Experts Corner. You get the questions that you haven't even thought about before, which is really important as well.
Yeah.
But what did you think about the speaking experience?
No, I mean, it's not my first speaking experience, so it's it was really fun to see. Especially the one thing that you're worried about when you do these things is how many people are going to come. So because you want like people in the room, right? And that was like the first. There's at least all the chairs are taken, so that was great. And I think it went well. It was fun. It was good back and forth. It's a good thing you and I have this podcast, so it's not like the first time you and I talk together. And I think I hope it helped someone. I think that's whenever I do something like this, like a podcast or anything like that, I try to think about it. If it helps someone at least, then it's good enough, because it helps me a lot. As you say, you need to put a lot of time into preparing and planning the session and walking through it. And by doing so, it's the same as writing a blog post. So like writing down stuff, you need to really think about it from all different angles. to avoid being challenged in the room, even though that's sometimes a good thing. I think in your case, Johan, you were both right. So it was a interesting topic.
I was actually the whole point of my session was actually to be challenged,
Yeah,
to
exactly.
try to understand what I've missed. And I mean, that's sort of one way I use to actually learn things at all, is to actually put myself in a situation where I have to learn, or where I have to discuss with people to try to understand how things works. And I think that's a really good thing.
Absolutely. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it was very fun. It was excellent, and it was fortunately in the beginning of the conference, so you kind of have a chance to get it done, and then the rest of that day at least focus on just learning and discussing with other people. So it was great fun.
Yeah, I had one session every day, and one of my sessions was in one of the really large rooms.
Yeah.
So when I came in, it was like, this is not gonna happen. I will have 3 people in the first row, but it was actually, I would say it was actually almost half full. So I was really happy. It was a good session, and I learned a lot.
It was an impressive venue. It was really cool. The hotel, like, situated right to the Adriatic Sea, and it took a lot of people. So that was really cool. I actually had one final option here. It's better perhaps to finish on this big thank you, of course. But there was a specific topic that I had an interest in, which was the LCS. I think Tommy presented the LCS migration from geo replication. I think this will come in the podcast as well. But some of us that are working in LCS have seen this, like, the banner coming up with you are in a different geo, you should migrate. And that was explained, and I had been wondering about that. So it was really good that you can actually migrate your LCS geo to your more local geo to gain performance in working in LCS, which does not then affect your actual environment. So, well, it affects them during the migration for a short while, but you are able to gain LCS-like performance. But it's possible to migrate your actual Dynamics environments as well to a different geo. That's not a topic that's applicable to me right now where I am, but it's very interesting to know that it's possible. And more information will come, I think, of course, on that one, but it is possible. And I think you and me, Johan, will try to do it internally first to move it to a closer geo from the US, which explains the banner that has been there on LCS now for a while, which I couldn't find. It says, please schedule a geo replication, but I couldn't find the actual button for it. But now it's there. So now it's available to us.
Yeah, the last thing I would like to just say is that if you are a visitor at the conference, if you're not a speaker, if you're a visitor at the conference, I heard something this week that actually I would like to pass on to everyone who's listening to our podcast. If you go to a conference, make a point of going to the sessions that you wouldn't go to, that you didn't even think about going to. Because those are actually the ones where you learn a lot.
Yeah.
If you only go to sessions that you plan to go to, then those sort of are already in your ballpark, already what you're working on, which means that you will not get challenged, you will not have different thoughts, you will not have anything like that. So I would really recommend going to sessions that you didn't even think about.
No, exactly. And I think that makes, as we said, like in the beginning as well, trying to understand other components, because we are like, it's not possible anymore to just, okay, I know FNO, I'm going to stick to that. That's my weapon of choice. I'm just going to do FNO. I don't care about like Dataverse. Who is that? I don't care. It's not possible well, it might be possible for like a couple of weeks more, but then you're probably going to find yourself in a struggle. At least like the least effort is to understand and read up on things that are required from an FNO perspective, because this is an FNO podcast. But it's from a learning perspective and understanding, I think it's much more fun to try to learn as much as possible without becoming, I mean, as I said before as well, it's probably most likely impossible to be an expert in all areas. And anyone who says they are, I think, should maybe be challenged. But it's possible to learn and to be an expert in understanding the other components, like how it fits in and what is the purpose, what problem is it trying to solve. Is always a good thing to ask, I think.
Especially if you're in a architect role or a role
Absolutely,
where you actually need to figure out the how everything fits together and so on. But last of all, I would also like to say to the Doccentric team, I would like to say this straight to them, that I would say that this was a really fascinating and really good conference. And they actually had a keynote speaker from Microsoft called Donna Sarkar, who said it best. She said that you can't even think that this is a first year conference. Yeah. It feels like you guys been doing this for a couple of years, because there was nothing missing, I would say.
No, absolutely. It was a great
from this
conference. So, and a big thank you, of course, to all the people who has been involved in planning and performing and executing the conference, of course.
And I'm really crossing my fingers that there will be a second year, because I would really much like to go to this conference again.
Yeah.
Yes, and with that, I think that we are done for today. So let's spend the next couple of days resting up after the conference and get some sleep, because it wasn't that much sleep actually. And as I said, hopefully we will be able to return to DynamicsMinds, because it was really fun.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
And have a nice time till we meet next. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.